speaker for this session is the CEO and founder of TIGM. Ms. Niv Kelly has over 10 years of experience in international education, preparing people globally for the future of work. With a focus on professional level English, Niv now works with international companies to advance their English communication strategy in a data-driven way. Please welcome Ms. Niv Kelly. Good morning to you.
Good morning. Great to be here. Thanks so much. Perfect. I'd just like to thank you and Oliver and all of the team as well for the invitation. There's a lot of work gone in behind the scenes, so it's a really great event to be part of. So thanks so much, and hopefully you can see my slides now as well.
We can see your slides now.
Perfect, great. So as mentioned, I'm the founder of TIGM, and what we try to do is we try to help people, organizations to communicate across cultures without barriers. I've spent many years in English education, working with different cultures. So this is something that is I'm very passionate about. And so there's a lot of people here that are from schools and also from businesses. And I just want to ask those, if you're not an English language teacher, that when you are speaking with, when you are in meetings, when you have to talk to other colleagues, clients or employees, that English isn't their first language. Is this something that ever comes into your mind? And so I have added a poll there just for you to add your answers, if it's something you always think about sometimes or maybe never think about. So nowadays, and in Singapore and all over the world, a lot of companies are becoming more and more international. So the trends are that international is more important. The companies, employees are becoming more diverse, maybe in the schools and the companies that you work with. And because of that, one thing that is really at the forefront now is being inclusive and inclusivity. However, with this, one element that can often be overlooked is that not just gender and not just people's social backgrounds, but also their linguistic backgrounds, their nationalities. What languages have they come from? And so language is really something that, in order for us all to work together collaboratively, whether it is in school or in an office environment, language is something that we actually need to really focus on, but it's often overlooked and not really part of the conversation. One interesting thing is that we try to improve English at a school level, but we often fail to do that at a professional level. And actually research has shown that at a professional level, although somebody has probably spent many years studying English, only 7% of people who are using English at work, when it's not their first language, actually feel confident in doing that. And that really has a big impact on, how they are going to be able to do their daily work, how they're going to be able to collaborate with others. So what actually happens is then there can be a barrier between just with the person that you're sitting next to, and it can be a barrier to people even progressing in their company, as well as maybe losing clients or miscommunicating in a way. So the effects of this really is that from a company standpoint, in terms of productivity or how much a person can really do their work, is the company is going to lose money because people are afraid maybe to say, I don't understand something. Can you go over that again? Asking for clarification. And this can lose a company money, over $11,000 per employee per year. So what we really need to address in the future of learning is that the future of learning is now, it is happening. But what we need to do is bring it into the future of work. It's great to look at all of these things we want to achieve down the line, but there's so much innovations going on in technology right now, and there's so much opportunity, and everything is moving really fast that we can bring this in now once people are willing to take it on board, to accept it and implement it. So what I'm going to do in this talk is give you 3 key principles for removing those barriers. If you're in a school environment, even if you're in a business environment or a friendship group, and there's different people that you're speaking to, how you can communicate across the cultures, how you can remove the barriers, and some of these things with AI. So these key principles are the things that I've developed over years, over 15 years teaching English as well. And this applies to, in a business sense, this applies to internally, so within your own workforce, and externally, with clients or with people outside of the company that you want to speak with more. So in the past, typically the communication style or the communication method in businesses was the manager would speak to or at the employees. There was no need for cross collaboration so much. It was, this is what I want done, this is what I want you to do. And this is associated with an era or a style of work called Taylorism, which you would typically see in factories and things like that. But right now, and especially in the last year, there has been so much more of an emphasis on collaboration and being able to speak with your team members, with people in the organization, because now people care a lot more about what people have to say and how people think in order to drive business and things forward. The question a lot of people are asking now is, how do we get the best from our talent? In the past, it was, how do we get how do we produce more? How do we make more revenue? And although doing those things is important, people want to get the best from their talent, just like teachers in schools want to get the best from their students. And it's about people now. So one of the first things is to know your audience. When you are writing or preparing anything for other people, it's really important that you know who you're speaking to, who you're addressing. And this is a way that's going to help you to get the best from people, because you want to be able to communicate at their level. So for any English teachers out there, if you're teaching at a beginner level, you will use beginner level English because you are pitching it at your audience. In this case, your audience can be your students, or your audience could be members at a meeting. So one application that we are looking at now, there is something called OpenAI. OpenAI has been developed by Elon Musk, Sam Altman. It is a really powerful AI application now that we're looking into using now at TIGM. And what you can do here is, with the AI, it can create much more natural conversations. And what we want to do is we want to try and move to a place where we can move away from assessments, where we can move away from people having to just spend an hour or 2 hours writing in order for us to be able to understand what is their level of English, what is their ability. And so what we can do with this, with our machine learning models as well, is that we can look at this and we can predict what level is the person at in a few minutes, based on the type of language, in a very natural conversation with an AI. And so by knowing more about people, by knowing what their level is, let's say we have a team, we have a group of people that we're working with, we know that they may have different levels. We know that they may have different levels. So we have to think about this differently. We have to think about how we're delivering information quite differently. And so what we can do then is, with machine learning, is that we can create models to adapt the language to the person's ability. So if we can analyze and classify language in a certain way, we know that this document, this training material, this book that you're giving to people to read, to consume, to understand, is actually at a level that is too complex for them. And what we want to be able to do is adjust things to their level in order to get the best, to get the best from them. Why is this important? Why does it need to be at a level that is easy for them to understand? Well, we also know that in language and in comprehension and in communication, that in order to fully understand a meaning, the person needs to know at least 95% of the words used. So you may have had experience before, if you're studying a language, if English isn't your first language, you can understand the concept of something, but maybe understanding the full meaning might be a little bit more difficult. And that can come down to the vocabulary and the language that is used in that. So at least 95% of the words used need to be understood by the audience. And so the second thing then is that we need to remember that communication is more than just grammar and vocab. When you're starting out on your language learning journey, this is really the focus, okay? You need to create a good foundation. You need to have a good, solid understanding of the language. However, as fluency develops, as you become more advanced, you realize that native speakers tend to use a lot more phrases, a lot more idioms, metaphors, things like this. So a lot of the time people it's important to read between the lines. So we have the meaning in the sentences, but we also have the meanings beyond the sentences. And for a lot of people, if they don't have an advanced level of the language, or they come from a different culture, being able to understand those different things can be very, very difficult as well. So it's really important that when you're communicating, that you communicate things that can be understood across the board, that you're not using too many metaphors or too many imaginary things that might be difficult for people from different cultures to understand. Even reading between the lines can be one of those examples. And so what we can do again is looking at not just people's level of English ability, but looking at their behavior. How do they behave in terms of language when they are giving feedback, giving instructions, giving information? And so what we can do now is we can look at the sentiment of communication. We can look at if it's positive, if it's negative. We can look at the different characteristics of that. And some of the characteristics that we're interested in looking at is, well, if a manager is delivering feedback, have they used empathy? Empathy is something that is very important nowadays in leadership. And if they don't, is this something that we see across the board that is just not their cultural style of giving feedback? So what can we do in that sense? And there's other things we need to look at, is how assertive are people? Are they clear in their meaning, in their messaging? And for any of these gaps that are missing, then it means that we can get a lot more data on people to understand what are the aspects of communication that they are maybe falling behind or lacking on in order to be able to progress professionally. So it's not just about English ability, it's also about their culture. Different cultures have different ways of expressing ideas, of giving feedback, of negotiating, of asserting their opinions and their ideas. And it's really important for us now to be addressing that, or to be trying to identify that in a much more continual and systematic way to get the best from people. So when we can use now sentiment analysis and NLP, natural language processing, we can ask, is the right style of language actually being used? And if it's not, if we're finding that there are things that people are lacking on, then the most important thing is that we give them the tools to succeed. And any teacher knows this, that people will only succeed with the right tools, with the right things that can support them. And this is also important now in business, because learning is not just in the school, learning is also in the workplace. So by knowing a person's English ability, by being able to identify the areas for improvement, then we're able to use AI to be able to design for the individual. And this goes back to the keynote speech this morning, that we have to design for the individual. We can't put everybody into the same box all of the time, because we're not going to we're not going to grow and advance in that sense. And AI gives us the opportunity to be able to do that because we can automate these systems and we can learn very quickly and provide things for the individual. So it can be faster, more efficient, and dynamic. So the it is a data-driven method that ultimately is going to help to get the best from people by learning from people. And you may be thinking, what if I don't know my audience? What if I can't check their English? What if I don't know who they are or where they're coming from? And so I would turn that question back and I would say, do you think that I communicated clearly in this presentation? And beforehand, I made specific choices about the language that I was going to use because I'm not fully aware of where everyone is from, but I have to think about that and I have to prepare in advance for that. So I asked a question at the beginning and the lead answer is sometimes. 62% of people say sometimes they think about the first language of the people that they're speaking to, which is great. Always we have in there a lower, and what's even better is 0% said never. So that is excellent to hear. So you may not always have data, you may not always have access to AI, but we're able to do things without the technology. We're able to do things that are not so expensive. So you prepare for, or your audience in the absence of the data. Communication is more than grammar and words. Think about the phrases that you're using, how you communicate your ideas, and give people the tools to succeed. And that might just be giving them practical tips, recapping on things so that they can take that and go away and feel like they learned something. So for us at TIGM, we are doing communication analysis, and I think maybe I have a video there for anyone who's interested in taking a look at the analysis, the quick way to analyze language to be able to get English levels and also to be able to understand a lot more about how well you're communicating. So take a look at that video, and if anybody wants to get in touch with me, we are inviting companies from AIBotics today to join a private beta with us. So thank you so much, everyone, and that is all from me.
Thank you very much, Nick. Yes, and you've just heard from